For more on this issue, I want to welcome on Representative Ralph Norman, the congressman serving South Carolina's 5th District. So, Congressman, I want to read a quick quote from one of your colleagues, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, when it comes to mail-in voting. She recently called President Trump and his allies in Congress, presumably yourself, enemies of the people concerning attempts to limit the expansion of mail-in voting. What's your response to those comments?
You know, like most of her comments, Alex, she's not only off the mark, it's so disingenuous for her to say that. The hearing was a perfect example of the left trying to create chaos on the mail-in system. Now, it's going to be chaos if, as they're trying to do, to have ballots that don't have signature verification, there's no checks and balances, and they're trying to create an illusion that Trump's pushing that. He's got a professional at the helm in Mr. DeJoy. He's an expert. He's not some hick they picked up off the street to run it. He started the company in '83 from 10 employees to over 7,000. So what she's saying is typical of Nancy Pelosi and why we've got to have a change.
And you bring up Postmaster General Louis DeJoy. He, of course, last week he appeared before Congress in front of both the Senate and the House, and he answered questions from lawmakers on that front. And this comes amid allegations that perhaps he's doing something to kind of create a distrust in the mail-in voting system. That's really what your Democratic colleagues are trying to paint this whole narrative, saying that he's trying to defund it in ways, he's trying to do away with different mechanisms that could make it harder to follow through on mail-in voting. Were you pleased with his performance in answering some of the questions addressing those concerns?
Well, in most cases, they wouldn't let him finish his answer. I mean, they were ranting, yelling at him. And Alex, he notified 46 states of trying to get ahead of massive mail-in voting. There's 158 million registered voters. If they mail in, if everybody votes, that would be 319 million. The post office averages 419 million pieces of mail daily. So it's just it's a ruse that they're trying to push on the American people. It doesn't surprise me, but I think he's doing a great job. He knows what he's doing, and he's going to handle this. If the Democrats would stop trying to disenfranchise voters by what they're doing, I know now why they got 600 lawyers lined up. They're going to contest anything.
And Congressman, there is an answer to this question, too, for the concerns raised by Democrats, and it's in the piece of legislation that they don't want to take up right now. $10 billion would have been allocated in the most recent piece of legislation that was being debated in the lower chamber. Of course, now we're stalled when it comes to a COVID-19 relief package, the same way that we hit a stalemate when it came to police reforms, and it seems any other legislative effort between now and November for that matter. So when it comes to coronavirus relief legislation or any other legislation for that matter, is it safe to say that those efforts are dead until the election happens?
It is, but they never needed the money anyway. You know, they had 10 billion from the CARES Act. They got 400 million aside for the election onslaught, as people call it. But they're going to handle this. Does the post office need a reform? Yes. But on the election that happens in 68 days, they're going to handle it. But if the Democrats will stop trying to create chaos, it'll go smooth.
And, of course, this falls within an election year, and I know that we can't talk too much about elections or anything like that. I want to focus more so on the legislative agenda. But for Republicans, they do have control of the upper chamber, and they've been successful in those efforts in a regard where they can push through judges. But, of course, they have to reconcile anything with the lower chamber as well. So if Republicans did have the lower chamber, is there a priority of some sort that you and your colleagues are looking to get through, whether it's a coronavirus relief, police reforms, or something completely different? Is there a priority down there?
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, we would show up to work. As you saw during the hearing called on Saturday, 68 did not show up. They were other places. The priority, if the Republicans were in control, we would go vote. It would be no proxy voting. And look at what we could work on. Post office reform. I mean, we have not been in session from the 16th of March to August. We've been in session 17% of the time. We're out of session now the whole month of August. We would go to work. We'd concentrate on reform, whether it's post office, whether it's health care, funding for the military, budget. Where are we getting money to pay for the coronavirus? There's so many things we could be doing, but as you know, the speaker controls when we go to work, how the committees are set up. And right now, unfortunately, it's just not happening. The American people deserve better.
No, and I think that right now, too, the Republican Party is making that case to the American people. They're putting forward policy points and saying there are things on our agenda that we want to get done if we were to take back the House, for example, in 2020. And I think that is something that resonates with the American people because, as you said, they do want change on a lot of different topics. It's just a matter of getting to that change. I think they were really upset with the whole idea of police reforms that really stagnated. After Senator Tim Scott put together that legislation, the Senate was ready to go, and then the House really put an end to that overqualified immunity. I think that was really what American people first saw, saying, okay, well, maybe that there isn't this chance for compromise, as many Democrats were saying. I think that's something that is now coming to fruition, and they're now getting the reality of that situation. But Representative Ralph Norman, I appreciate you coming on the show tonight. Thank you.
My pleasure.